What's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. In today's video we're going to be making a knife with these bandsaw blades. Now this video came about because if you recall, about a week ago my bandsaw blade broke on my wood cutting bandsaw, and so I figured there'd be nothing better to do than to chop it up and make it into a knife, give it new life. So we like to recycle here, so that's exactly what I'm doing. And normally I use metal bandsaws, but these ones have larger teeth, so I figured it looked pretty cool as well if I use these guys. Maybe it look a little different. I'm not sure if the teeth sides make a big difference in the actual knife overall, but it doesn't hurt to try. So that's pretty much where the idea came from, and we're doing our standard procedure. We got our canister already prepped with our white spray paint, and we're just filling up the negative space with steel powder. Now once the knife is made and etched, the blades are going to be black and the steel powder will etch in a lighter color, and that will be our contrasting colors whenever we go on ahead and do our etch. So here I use the press to help me push down the billet, and so I can fit my cap, because I had cut them a little bit too tall. I took into account the little bit of space that I would need, but apparently I did my math wrong and I left it just a tad bit too tall on some. So as per the standard, we are pressing top to bottom first to make sure we get a nice solid billet, and then all we're going to do is start working out the sides. The reason why I do top to bottom is because that one initial press actually makes the billet solid, and afterwards all we're doing is pretty much releasing it from its canister and making sure it comes out nice and smooth. And the reason why I do it this way is because I don't like to grind off the canister. Some people like to do it that way, but I prefer this method, and because then I don't have to wait for the actual steel to cool down, and I can do it pretty much all in one go. So with my billet out, it's time to start forging it down. Now I could forge it into a knife from here, but I normally choose not to because of the individual grains in the steel powder. Sometimes the edge doesn't get as fine as it would be, and that is because you have nickel powder in the steel powder, and because of that nickel content in there, you have steel that essentially doesn't really get hard, so it makes the edge a little toothy. So what I like to do is I like to forge it out thin and then stack it up with a coarse steel. That way we can have a nice solid clean edge. So our billet construction is going to consist of the outer layers with copper and with a 5160 core steel, which will be our cutting edge for this knife. Now this is my first time actually using 5160 for my cutting edge. I normally go with 80 CRV2 or a 1084, but unfortunately I don't have anything that is the right thickness for that, except for the 5160 that I recently ordered, so I wanted to try that out. And I hear it is a good knife making steel. It's essentially leaf spring, it's spring steel. Normally, if you work with leaf spring, most leaf spring is 5160, and I've made plenty knives that are very, very good from that kind of steel, but I use reclaimed leaf springs for that. And recently I like to use nice clean virgin steel whenever I do these knives. So originally I just made the steel. I didn't really know what I was gonna make with it, so I pretty much just fit whatever template I had, which in this case the one that fit was a 8-inch chef's knife that I have here, and so I'm using that as my template, and I'm using the template to guide my initial pinholes that I do with 1/8. Afterwards I can adjust them to whatever size I want. In this case I'll be using 1/4 inch, so I'll do my final 1/4 inch holes into the steel right now while it's soft. I decided to try it this way. Normally I cut out the knife or I grind it out first and then I do my holes, but this time I decided I wanted to try it out this way to see if the holes were softer in the long run, and I'm assuming it did. Sometimes you have an anneal knife that's nice and soft, but for some reason you're always struggling with it and you have to anneal it again. I believe that comes from the grinding where you're heating up the knife and then you're quenching it in water to cool it down, even though you're not getting it extremely hot. Maybe that helps to harden the knife unintentionally. I'm not sure. I just wanted to try it out, and yeah, the holes came out nice and soft and very easy. So I think I might be doing this from now. It did seem to be a lot easier than what I normally do. And if you've ever tried this out, or if you know if that actually is something that happens, let me know in the comments down below. If you struggle with your knives sometimes hardening after you do your profiling. But regardless, I was able to do quick work of the holes, and overall I felt like it sped up the process a little bit. So here I'm just cutting off the excess amount of steel that I'm really not going to use, and it's better than creating dust, so I like to cut those off on the bandsaw whenever I can. And then I have a lot less grinding to do and a lot less dust build up in my shop. Since I work in such a small confined area, it's very easy to build up dust in here. It's like ridiculously easy. And I've been thinking about doing a kind of filtration system just to help with all the dust. But that is something for a later date. For my grinding, I just used an old worn out 36 grit, and I'm using my push stick to force it in there. The belts, they work pretty well and they last a pretty long time. The only thing is, without a push stick, it's gonna easily get hot. Especially this knife that has the copper shims in there. That copper definitely likes to hold in heat. So I like to use a push stick, and it's better than using a brand new belt, because that would just be a waste. These things cost like 11, 12 bucks a piece. So you gotta use them as much as you can. And if there's any company out there that wants to sponsor my abrasives, I'm not gonna say no, so hit me up. Overall, surprisingly, it has been a pretty chill build. I haven't really had any issues up until this point. And knock on wood, I don't have any issues, which wink wink, it is a pretty good telltale sign that something's gonna happen down the road. Because really it wouldn't be a JP's Bladeworks build if I don't run into an issue here or there in the build of this knife. And with copper knives, as you know, it's very easy to run into some kind of issues down the line. It's definitely not something that's unheard of. Alright guys, so I've run into a little issue with this knife. And that issue is that my copper right here gets extremely close, basically touches. So from here on out, this knife is useless. So I'm gonna have to cut that part off, which kind of sucks because this design was meant for a bigger knife. And this guy's still pretty beefy, so I think I'm gonna pass it on the surface grinder attachment to knock a little bit more weight off. But yeah, I'm gonna have to cut that whole tip off, and I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna shape this out now to make it fit better, which is kind of a bummer because it's gonna go from like an 8-inch knife to like a 5-inch knife. So I have some thinking to do about that, and I gotta figure out how I'm gonna go on ahead and do that, what the shape is gonna be. But other than that, the rest of it is nice and centered pretty well. We got nice, the core steel's centered well enough to where I can adjust it, but that is a bummer. Alright guys, so I decided on just bringing the edge back and bringing it up from here to here, and then I'll just keep working it up if I have to. If by bringing it up I can get past this point where they touch, and then I could figure out how to align it correctly, and then we should be good to go. Hopefully that works. If not, then yeah, I will have to back up to this line that I made right here. But I'm hoping not to, so for now I'm just gonna take the edge all the way up to that point. And if I'm good, I'm probably gonna bring this one back down just to make it look good. And hopefully that fixes it, because if not, this knife is gonna get ridiculously small, ridiculously fast. So I'm guessing nobody knocked on wood, because I definitely ran into an issue. And as I was saying before, it's not very uncommon on these knives to overpress it and have a little bit of copper going over the center. Now in this case, because if I had done the knife backwards, and I already checked on both sides, had I flipped the template over and then done it, I would have probably been in the green to, have a solid knife overall. Alright guys, so I think I'm able to salvage it now. I've dropped back the material quite a bit. I still have decent length for my knife. I haven't measured it. But my trouble spot is here. And you can see both sides are touching it. But I have a little tiny gap in the center. So as long as I'm very diligent with my grind, I should be fine there. And I have this spot right here as well. But as you can see here on the other side, we have plenty of material. So I just gotta baby my grind there as well, and I think we should be okay. I ended up lightening the knife quite a bit, and that cost us to go through some of our outside cladding, which is fine. And overall, I think we can save it. Alright, so we are out of the temper. The knife is looking good. You can see the pattern of the Damascus popping out from when we quenched it. Overall, it's looking pretty good. As I said before, my only spots are here and here. I have a very, very thin margin where I can actually grind it. So I'm hoping that works out. If not, I'm gonna have to cut the knife down back another inch. I'm gonna have to grind it back and fix it. So I left it like that. I'm gonna cross my fingers and hopefully it works out, and if not, then I'll just grind it back and make it smaller, and it is what it is. So other than that, the knife is actually looking pretty nice, and the pattern is looking pretty good in there. So I'm gonna go on ahead and start grinding this, and start grinding in my bevels and get my finished grind in there. And another thing is that I have a warp towards my tip. So you can see right there, my tip curves towards my left, which is this thumb. So I'm gonna fix that with that carbide peen, straighten it out a little bit, and then from there it'll just be all grinding. So I feel like I say this in every video that I use this hammer on, but a carbide peen hammer is a life changer. So if you want to get one of your own, you can definitely make it on the low. And I have a build video in which I make it myself, and I make it for about under $20 when they run about $110 online. So if you want to do that, I definitely have a video in which I show you exactly how I do it and where to get the pieces. So I'll have that in the description down below, or maybe I'll pop it up on the top corner if you're interested in that. So moving back to the grind went off nice and smoothly, and here I'm just rounding over the top of the knife, making sure it's all nice and rounded so we don't cut our fingers. Alright guys, so I have it ground pretty much where I want it. I'm going to start my hand sand, but before I start my hand sand, I wanted to give you guys a little update. So this is the part where I had said that the copper was touching. This was my very delicate spot, and I was able to bring it back here and on the other side as well. So I got a solid 1/4 inch spacing right there, and that should be able to handle that. And I had another trouble spot back here, right here. I had this trouble spot right here, which was touching, and I also was able to bring that back, as well as the other side is plenty of space. So we got all nothing but good steel on the edge for the whole knife, so we're in the safe zone now. Now all I gotta do is hand sand it and get it looking all nice and pretty, and we'll start on our handle. Alright guys, so I'm done with the hand sanding, and we're going to move on to the handle. So I found these two pieces. They're not quite book matched, or maybe they are. They look pretty similar, but they're really nice pieces, and I'm not sure what kind of wood they are, but they are stabilized, and I think they're going to match well with this guy. So I'm going to use this for my handle material, and I'll be pairing it up with some black pins. So let's talk spacers. So pretty much on all my knives, for the most part, over the last few months, I've been using spacers, primarily a black spacer. And I've been using this on all my knives because I like to use the spacer as an in-between layer so that I can have a safe space where I can put down some tape so that I can do a layer of clear nail polish. And that layer of clear nail polish lets me etch the whole spine all the way around the knife. That way we have a nice clean look all the way around. And it's basically my little hack on how I managed to get a consistent etch and coffee etch all around the knife, including the spine and the handle area. And because I like to go by this method, I like to use black G10 pins because they match the liner, and it just overall puts the piece together. So you'll find that most of my knives over the last few months are definitely this type of construction, and I think it flows well with the knife, and black goes with just about anything. So now we reached the part in this video and in every video where I ask you if you like the video and you like what I do and I bring value through entertainment or maybe through knowledge that you didn't prior know how to do certain parts of this build or any build. Definitely let me know by dropping me a like, let me know in the comments down below, or subscribing if you're not subscribed, because about 80-90% of my viewer base is not subscribed, and it would definitely help the channel grow and help me do more cooler builds down the line if I have more subscribers, and it makes me look better for the sponsors as well. So definitely I would appreciate that. And the cool thing about it is a totally free way to help support the channel. And if you want to support in a more monetary fashion, you can do so by going to my store that is in the description down below, and you can pick up this knife that I am finishing up in this video if you like it, or a number of other knives that I have on there. And it is a great way to help support, and believe me, these cool, wacky, weird knives, they go pretty quick. So if you want to pick it up for yourself, definitely go and check that out in the description down below. And for everybody that buys and has bought, I greatly appreciate it, because without those funds over the last 40-45 days, we might not be making knives anymore. So I greatly appreciate the help that has been. And I think I speak for many makers in that whenever you start selling knives, it kind of helps you get past that little point where you're like, are my knives good enough to be able to, you know, sell and trade for any kind of money? And so that's a very cool thing to be able to, you know, start learning and getting used to actually selling my products online and getting that feedback that people actually do like them and that they're very useful. Like this knife that is ridiculously sharp. And I think that that's not something that just knife makers kind of struggle with, but all makers in general, no matter what you're making, you could run into that issue where you're struggling with the value of what you're making and, you know, trading essentially art for money. Because we all know very well that you can get a $5 knife, and if you baby it and take care of it the right way, it will last you a pretty good time. But these knives are essentially a one-of-a-kind work of art, and I think I did pretty good on this knife overall. So if you like it, let me know in the comments down below. And as always, I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Peace.